When Steel talks, everybody listens.
Okay, so this is When Steel Talks. We're here on the NYU campus. It's graduation week. Several of the NYU Steel ensemble members who were part of the overall percussion program here have said goodbye to the campus. They're moving on, and we've interviewed Russell Fisher, who was a member of NYU Steel. And next in line is Luz Carime Santa-Coloma.
Yes.
And thank you. Thank you for taking the time out to chat with When Steel Talks. You have had several experiences with PANS in your last, 4 years at
Yes.
least. I mean, you've been part of NYU Steel, the major part. Then, of course, you've been part of the Brooklyn Steel Orchestra. Did you travel to Trinidad and
Yes.
Tobago with the band?
We did. I did the ICP with
The
them.
International Conference in Panorama in August 2015, so you've had that experience.
Mhm.
You performed on stage with Crossfire
Yes.
for Panorama, so you have essentially a wealth of experience under your belt in terms of Pan. Talk about which has been most memorable for you, and also talk about your journey here. First of all, you want to say you're Brooklyn born, and
Yes.
you grew up in Florida,
Yes.
West Palm Beach, so you've really been in the warmth and within kind of like a tropic feel at times. But talk about your journey to this point and what has been the most memorable, or among the most memorable so far.
Okay, well, honestly, before I came to New York, to NYU, I had very little knowledge of Pan. It was like almost non-existent. So I came here and I found out that we're required to be in this NYU Steel band, and it was really exciting because I was like, wow, a completely new instrument that I get to learn that I have no idea about. And it was so amazing to have so much fun on an instrument that was so new to me when, you just wouldn't expect that. So that first experience was like pretty awesome. And so Josh introduced us to Crossfire. He said that they would all be really welcoming if you wanted to play during the summer. And I jumped on that opportunity, I think, summer of my sophomore year, I believe. Oh, yeah, it's been a while. But I think that first performance with Crossfire is probably the one I will never forget.
You mean for Panorama?
For Panorama
Okay.
here in Brooklyn, because it was a type of performance that I'd never experienced before.
Mm-hmm.
It was like breathtaking, when you finish, your heart's beating so fast and like you can't hear anything, and I was like, wow,
Yeah,
I have
definitely.
never experienced this in my entire life. And the excitement and I was nervous too, before you play. It was crazy. But second to that would be going to Trinidad and playing there. It was similar but also completely different because you're like in the homeland, and the rehearsals that we had that week, we were just like, drilling all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something I'd also never experienced
It's
because
a competitive forum, that
Yeah.
type of competition.
it was very different. It was very challenging, but it was amazing. And I would do it again in a heartbeat, So those are the two experiences that I think will stay with me forever.
So are you planning to continue, schedule permitting, in terms of going back to Trinidad or performing again
Yeah,
in the New York
to.
Panorama at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to play with Crossfire again this summer.
Okay.
I need to get my hands on some pans, figure out how that's going to happen. But and if there's ever another opportunity for me to go over to Trinidad and play,
You're
I
looking
would.
at it. So, every instrument, percussive, will not most come with a culture, a background, a history, a community. But what was it about Pan that allowed you or propelled you to go maybe even the extra step, like stepping into the Pan yard? Because you can come to NYU, you're involved in NYU Steel, that's mandatory, but going into a Pan yard and traveling further afield is not necessarily what everyone is going to go into. What about it made you take that extra step to get even more deeply involved overall?
I think aside from how happy it makes me playing Pan and the music that I love, the community and the people, everyone's so nice. And like when I first watched Crossfire play in the Pan Yard, it was like, wow, everyone's having so much fun. Everyone's dancing, and not even at NYU Steel does that happen because
It's a little bit more formal.
Yeah. like half of the class is enjoying themselves and the other class is like, maybe I could be doing something else, you know. But it was just incredible to see everybody, you know, just so in love with what they're doing at that moment. So that was when I was like, wow, I wanna be a part of this.
Mm-hmm. What did you learn from Pan for the past few years that you would say would influence you as you move forward in your musical journey?
Probably staying positive and staying upbeat, you know, happy.
A positive outlook in life.
Yeah, and keeping that feeling of how I'm playing when I play Pan.
To take you
keeping it
through
with me.
different points. So, do you think that Pan or playing itself would accompany you as you move forward?
Yes.
Okay. When you have to explain to people, you know, I play Pan, or people who are not, you know, associated with the instrument at all, or for them it's a novelty, you know, how do you describe it, or what are their thoughts on it, and then what do you say to them?
A lot of the time people are like, what's Pan?
Right.
So I have to explain to them it's the national instrument of Trinidad and Tobago, and it's Caribbean, and then they're like, oh, I think I know what you're talking about. But aside from that, I always tell them that it's one of my favorite instruments, and I love to do it, and I'll probably keep doing it.
In terms of, you play tenor, double seconds,
Double seconds.
bass. So what's your favorite voice within the steel pan family?
I love to play double seconds a lot.
Okay.
Second to that is bass. I have so much fun on bass.
Yes.
Yeah, I was trying to tell Kendall that I want to play bass this summer. So yeah, I love supporting in music. I love being in the supportive parts, and it's just so much fun to, like, I don't know, watching the bass players play. They always have their dance moves, and it's like you can't really play bass without dancing. So I think that's one of my favorite parts about bass.
When you're in a pan yard, there's the opportunity most times to learn by rote, and of course at NYU and at formal institutions, we use music sheets, etc. How do you find the two interplay, and what do you think of your rote experience in the pan yard, especially when arrangers change parts, etc.?
I think learning by rote is very valuable, and it was really hard for me at first, but it definitely helped my ear with music, and now I actually prefer it, learning by rote rather than reading music, because when you read sheet music, there's a disconnect between visual, like your hands,
and the emotional
memories.
involvement, as opposed to playing from within.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so by rote, like, you're forced to memorize it. You're forced to, like, really understand the music and the direction of the melody and stuff. So I think that that's really important. And I really like learning by rote much better now. Yeah, it's still harder for me, but
The benefits
Yeah.
and the feelings that emanate work for you.
yeah.
Talk a bit more about your week or so in Trinidad and Tobago when you were there for that international conference and panorama event. Talk a bit more about your practice sessions, you know, being in the country. Well, you probably didn't have time to go to too many places, but also, and then being on stage, it was also a daylight experience
Yeah.
as opposed to the nighttime experience of panorama in New York. You know, share a bit on that.
So
Overall.
our practice days would usually go, if I remember, I think we would be in the yard by 10 or 11 in the morning, and we would stay there for maybe 4 or 5 hours, go back to the hotel, or I think it was a hotel we were staying at, maybe it was like in I don't know.
Yeah.
But and then we would have lunch, and then we'd go back for night, and we would stay till like 2 in the morning or something like that, 1 or 2 in the morning, and that was really hard for me because it was just very challenging physically. It was very hot, but you know, you don't realize how much work you can get done in that amount of time. Like, if we did that here, we would be great, you know, that would be awesome. But yeah, it was totally beneficial by the end of the week. It was so worth it, like all the hours we put in, the amount of work, and yeah, that whole experience, like growing closer with the BSO family, getting to know each other more, hanging out, eating lunch together, dinner together. The inn had a pool. Like, you know, it was so much fun just getting to know each other and finding out all the things we had in common. The experience itself, like the performance.
Mm-hmm. On stage.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. It was very scary at first. Just, you know, I had no idea what to expect.
Well, you just had one part to play the music, so that was it, and you took care of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I always get nervous before I perform, so I was just
That's
like,
good.
oh man, I better not mess this up, you know. But it went, like, you know, you don't realize, like, once the music starts, once the count off happens, you're just like, you're gone, and then it ends, and you're like, what just happened, you know? That's at least how it was for me, and it was amazing. So that was a lot of fun. And then when we were done, we went to Maracas Bay, and that was beautiful. And we had bacon shark, and I was in heaven. It was, I want to go back.
Well, if you go back for the mainstream panorama competition, it's going to be more intense and a whole lot more people.
I can imagine.
But it's going to be enjoyable if you do. That's going to be great. As you move forward, and Pan, as you said, it makes you feel really good inside. In addition to the fact that you're a musician first and foremost, how do you think you would share that with others? Like, for instance, someone says, I like music, but they think some instruments are a bit formal. Do you see yourself saying, well, maybe you can try Pan and see how that goes? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Definitely. One of the things I want to do with Pan is something similar to what Josh is doing, and I suppose Russell is going to do as well in chamber music, bring it more to chamber music. I have a duo with my friend Sarah Bennett, and I think it would be really cool to incorporate that, not only in, like, classical standard, like, percussion repertoire, or strictly soca, Caribbean music, but stuff that we write together.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be really cool to get that out more. On the other hand, telling people about Pan and joining these Pan yards and stuff, I've actually been, like, really open about that. Someone was talking to me about it a few days ago, asking me, he was like, oh, you played with the bands in Brooklyn, didn't you? And I was like, yeah, you know, you should totally try it. They're so nice and it's so much fun. And he's like, yeah, you know, I think I'm gonna get in that. I think he was a former student, but I think it's definitely something, if you have the opportunity, you should take it.
It's something that you would encourage people to get a little bit more experience in.
I had been telling people at NYU, like, oh, we should really do it. And my friend Sarah did it last summer, and she was like, I'm so glad you told me to do that because it was so much fun. So yeah, I'm an advocate, huge advocate, Steel Pan.
And on the topic of advocacy in Steel Pan, this has been Professor Jonathan Haas, his vision for so much time,
Mm-hmm.
and it finally came to fruition more than a decade ago. And so much so, it's a mandatory part of percussion majors at NYU. What do you think of that approach to it, that it's not optional, but it's mandatory for percussion majors? I mean, do you think it works?
I think it does. If I'm being honest, I'm not sure if I would have joined it my freshman year if it wasn't mandatory, just because I didn't know a lot about anything. I was just trying to get through my first year in college. I actually opted out of another ensemble, marimba ensemble, that was optional because I wasn't sure if I would have enough time in my schedule, which ended up being one of my favorite ensembles as well. So yeah, I think it's a really good approach because a lot of people are scared to touch things that they don't know about, and forcing people to do it, forcing me to do it,
Or assisting them.
assisting them
Along the way. Well,
making
you
them
have a
mandatory.
choice.
Yeah. But yeah,
Because
I mean,
you said
it was
it makes you
beneficial.
happy. It also assists you in your overall development.
Yeah.
And you're still with your focus, which is music, so it worked out.
Yes.
So you think that generally it works out
Yeah.
when all is said and done.
I think it's totally worth it.
Okay. You also composer.
Yes, a little bit.
You sing?
I sing.
So you sing a songwriter.
Sing a
Talk a
songwriter.
bit about that aspect of your character, your music character.
Well, I started doing that in high school. I
Mm.
started playing guitar and I just started singing and
And
writing
you do
music.
piano as well?
I play piano, yeah. That was
Right.
my first instrument
Okay.
when I was like 7. But yeah, I don't know. It was just something to do after school. I came to NYU and I haven't had a lot of time to do that, but now that I'm graduating, I'm hoping to bring that back into my life. It's one of those things that make me really happy, just like band does. So I'm hoping to do some more with that. Yeah, it's just another way to express myself, and I feel it's a bit easier to do that with singer-songwriter stuff and pan than it is for me to do it with classical percussion, if that makes sense. It's just different for everyone.
What do you see in terms of a vision for Pan, like say 5 years from now? I mean, if you had your way.
I would see myself still performing with the band, going to Trinidad every year. That would be great. Incorporating it into my own written music.
Yeah.
And just performing as much as I can. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So, any further thoughts on Pan overall that you'd like to share that perhaps we didn't touch on, or did we kind of canvas everything?
I guess I would just say if you have the opportunity to learn pan, to play pan, to watch pan being performed, I would take it, because it's a different experience watching it, playing it. It's just like a wonderful instrument. I'm so happy that it's in my life now.
It's part of everything else that you're doing.
Yeah.
Because music is very holistic. All right. Well, as we wrap up, I want to say it was wonderful looking at you through the years performing on stage. Happy taking photographs of you. I mean, the NYU Steel, coming to the concerts and seeing how the students progress from concert to concert and from year to year, it's always rewarding. And, when we focus on some people because they're just a bit more visible than others, it makes it even more fulfilling for when Steel talks to be able to share that with the global steel pan community. It's really good. So great work. You have graduated from NYU. You said you're taking a break, but you will continue as a performing artist. You're a composer. Pan will be part of your journey, and at some point you will continue on in terms of education. So great work in graduating. Thank you for just making a lot more people smile in your performances.
Thank you.
And all the best.
Thank you.
And so when Steel talks, it's happy to have been able to sit down. Let me get your name again. Luz Carime, Santa-Coloma. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.